they're trying to integrate, how can I fit this into the beliefs that I already have?
Right.
And I just thought it would be a good idea to address that, because I get letters from people who are a bit confused about that, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening may be thinking about that.
Yeah, it's true, and it's something that does need to be addressed. A lot of individuals up through and including the traditional stage of development, the mythic stage of development, do have this view that one person can have this state of consciousness, but nobody else. And that is a belief that we don't find in the mystics, East or West, and it's something that is in many ways the product of a political choice through the Catholic Church. And because there's many cases of prophets and saints and individuals that are recognized to be essentially in communion or in union with God or Godhead. And what the Catholic Church did was basically, in a, like say, kind of a political move, say that, well, wait, only one person was in that state. And that state is salvation, and we, the church, controls access to that state.
Right.
And so just there, right there, was a power move to, in a sense, make that the graces from that state available only through certain rituals and certain practices that the Catholic Church itself 100% owned. And that took place. That was not present in the early teachings, certainly not of Jesus, and slowly codified over the first 300 to 400 years of the Catholic Church's growth.
And though the Protestant denominations today don't express it exactly that way, there still is this implicit thing that that Jesus is the great exception.
Right, and there's you can even find even in the Synoptic Gospels you can find statements like "Let this consciousness be in you, which was in Christ Jesus,
right,
that we all may be one." And so there were even hints of this that got through and made it through even the Orthodox versions of this story. But if you look at it around the world, it's a staggeringly unanimous decision, which is that the capacity for any individual to get into this state of consciousness is the birthright of every single individual alive. And that having it taken away and given to just a single person, as dramatically as it was done with Jesus of Nazareth, is just out of whack with the great wisdom of humanity on the whole. So it is true, though, that many modern Protestant individuals have a hard time with that notion. And it's something that they just have to work with. They have to study a little bit, have to open their own awareness to, and then make that decision for themselves.
One of the political statements that you talked about is kind of the idea that we know what the truth is, and we're going to tell you what it is, as opposed to a competing idea, which is a developmental step or two further down the road, which is that you could go and find out for yourself. You could do some sort of experiential practice,
right,
and find out for yourself what's going on in the
right,
universe spiritually. And so I think that's what we're kind of saying to people, is that rather than having somebody hand you truth, in a book or something, there are practices, and this is partly what Tolle is talking about,
Right.
things that you can do so that you can experience this same thing that Jesus and a lot of other people have talked about. And that is kind of a shift for people to think, gee, instead of having somebody tell me about this, I could actually do it, experience it myself. And that's partly what the Integral Life Practice Starter Kit is about. That's certainly a lot of what Holosync is about, is that you can experience these states for yourself. And once you have the experience yourself, your whole perspective on it changes. I mean, that's one of the things I think that does open up a person's experience, perspective. Even having that transcendent now moment experience at a lower developmental level does do something to open a person's perspective and prepare them, hopefully, to make the next developmental shift.
Yeah. No, I agree entirely. And I think that one of the things that we've seen over the last 30 years is an increasing shift to just that kind of understanding and that type of desire in an enormous number of individuals that have come from the previous understanding, which is, here's truth, we're giving it to you. It's, swallow it just like this. It's a dogma, it's a creed. If you believe the myth exactly the way we tell you, then you live in heaven. If you don't believe the myth exactly the way we tell you, then you're going to hell.
You're in big trouble.
That was sort of, religion. What's happened over the last 20, 30 years is that now, although 60% of the American population remains churched. In other words, they go to church or synagogue on a regular basis and more or less buy into the dogma that's presented to them, although even that's loosened up a lot. 60% do that, but a full 20% now actually call themselves and refer to themselves and will use the phrase spiritual but not religious.
Uh-huh.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. Spiritual is a direct living experience. It's not religious, which is dogmatic and fixed and, this mythic membership, traditional fundamentalist approach. And that 20% is a huge, huge chunk of the population. And they are looking for the reality of experiential tasting and testing. And most of the world's great mystical traditions are experiments in consciousness. They are ways that you can do these particular practices, and if you do them consistently, you will have the following kinds of experiences. And that's what people want. They want to check it out themselves, and they want the real live experience that the original mystics themselves had. And that's what can be done doing these kinds of things. And so that's, it's one of the reasons that, we appreciate that, Oprah's having Eckhart and has had several other individuals on that are basically talking about spiritual but not religious.
Yeah, and I suspect that a lot of the people that are attracted to this through Oprah are those people that consider themselves spiritual and but not religious.
Yeah.
So
I think so. And then fortunately, some of the people that are, kind of religious are going to start thinking about getting spiritual, and breaking out of some of the dogmatic forms that they've been locked into.
Right. And people tend to remain in those dogmatic forms as long as they work in helping them to make sense of their life. But at a certain point, if they don't seem to work very well anymore, that's when people at first are kind of feel a little lost, and then they begin to figure it out, and that's a developmental shift happening.
Yes, it is.
So let me throw something else in here, because if we look at the next developmental level, the rational level, you've got a lot of people that look at what Tolle is saying, and certainly he's not the only one saying it, but we're kind of focusing on this as a platform. They look at that and they just sort of poo-poo it as being kind of lightweight, airy-fairy sort of stuff. And this is another trend that's happening in the world where the sort of disowning of internal subjective experience